Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan with you for a new Inside the Birds podcast, presented, of course, by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. All right, last podcast, we went in, we did some news and nuggets, and then we started our two-part series, our roster review series, where we go over the Eagles roster. We did the defensive side of we did the offensive side of the football in the last podcast. This time we're going to cover the defensive guys. And of course, we talk about guys who are under contract, and we kind of take a look at each position. You know, D-line will go through linebacker, secondary, and we'll try to give our best summation of what the Eagles have right now, some areas that they're going to probably look to upgrade. And, you know, as we do that, Adam, we get closer to free agency. We get closer to the NFL scouting combine. And of course, we'll be at the combine. And that, what day you fly? You fly in on Mondays usually, right? Or Sunday?
No, Tuesday. Tuesday is the first
okay.
media day. I
Okay.
usually get there like the middle of the coaches and GM interviews on Tuesday,
Right.
which usually go 2 or 3 days. And it's particularly interesting this year because there's so many new head coaches and new general managers. So a lot of faces have changed. And then, so I usually go home on Sunday. So I'm going to go home Sunday morning. So I'm there for 5 days, and you and I know it like the back of our hand. We don't need a car there.
Right.
You know, we kind of know where we're going.
All right. So next week we will both be there, and it'll be kind of it's hard to believe that it's already just a week away, but there's a lot to talk about, a lot to get through this Eagles team. Had a great live stream last week, dropped a little intel on the live stream for our Patreon members, our Ask ITB live stream.
To say the least.
Appreciate. Yeah, I think people were really appreciative of that. I think we were on for a good hour. So our next one, as we said, will be from the combine. That'll be on February 28th.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, right. So I want to say hello to our new members, Adam B. and Gerardo. And of course, if you want to get on it, it's patreon.com/insidethebirds to become a member. And we'll get back to the Discord channel as well.
Yeah, so that's what I want to add. So starting this week, we're going to chat all year, live stream every other week, and now we're going to bring back the Discord chat. So this week's, look for on our Patreon channel, look for the promo. It's either going to be this Wednesday or Thursday night at 8 Eastern. It's always half an hour. And correct me if I'm wrong, aren't the instructions how to join the Discord in their welcome email, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, it is. Make sure you thoroughly scan your welcome email to the Patreon membership to find out how to connect to Discord.
Gotcha.
It's not very difficult. Some people have had some issues with it. They've emailed us and we've told them how to rectify that. So haven't had too many issues there. All right. Real quick, we'll start off with one quick news nugget since our last podcast. Eagles gave out a contract extension, not to Devontae Smith, not to Landon Dickerson, to a coach, a coordinator, special teams coordinator, Michael Clay. And there's really nothing to it other than that he's still going to be on the staff. But I find it really interesting, the whole what a difference a year can make. Because if you were to, talk to Eagles fans about all three coordinators at this time last year, as much as Jonathan Gannon was getting it, Michael Clay was getting it more than anybody. And, people wanted him to lose his job. And I think he did a pretty decent job, Jake Elliott. And by the way, we should say the coordinator, Michael Clay, does a nice job. He's got two really good assistants, Joe Panunzio and Tyler Brown, who is the kicking game coach, right, Adam? Tyler Brown?
He's actually the specialist coach who handles the punter, the kicker, and the returners.
Got it. There you go.
And then Michael Clay oversees it all. Clay actually, in our reporting last year, they signed him to a revised deal, an extension. There was a concern because he knows D'Amico Ryans. I believe they must have worked together with the Niners. Not 100% positive, but there was a concern that someone else may want him. And you got to give the Eagles credit. I mean, they took care of him last year. They did again. And you got to give also Tyler Brown credit, who turned around Jake Elliott's career. We mentioned this 3 years ago. They went over the sort of the snap to the hold and everything, the process, if you will, and they corrected it, and he became great. And how about he's one of the two best kickers in football? And how about Braden Mann? How about that one? I mean, again, their specialists did a heck of a job. And how about and Britton Covey? I mean, what else could you say?
Yeah,
their coverages could be better, but everything else is good.
And I think Josh Jobe was he wasn't a Pro Bowl special teamer, but he was on the list, right? He was up for that. He was one of their best special teams player. I remember he got recognized on some list as,
Okay.
he didn't win the award, but he was among the finalists for it, so to speak. So Josh Jobe did well. Michael Clay had a lot of moving parts because they had to play a lot of these guys, whether it was
Right.
Ricks, whether it was Jobes, Ringo, Ben Van Sumer, and they all, by the end of the season, had to play on defense. So he constantly had to deal with moving parts and special teams. I don't remember what it was ranked in the Rick Gosselin special teams rankings, but they were pretty good. They finished as one of the top special teams units. So good turnaround from the year before.
Oh, phenomenal. The only thing, again, their coverage still could be better, but again, it's just overall based on what you were talking about where they were a year ago, how Covey started off his career, and then the second half of last season of 22 season, excuse me, was great. And now he's one of the top 3 returners in the NFL in terms of punt. Kickoff return may or may not be solved depending on what happens with Isaiah Rodgers. We checked in Friday. He has not been reinstated. I know people are speculating that's not happened yet. If and when he gets reinstated, he'll have a chance, depending on how OTAs go, to be their kickoff returner, amongst other roles. He also, by the way, he returned punts and kicks in college at UMass. So if he can make the team, there's a lot he could help them with.
By the way, it's worth noting because we did a little bit of a contract show last week and talked about certain guys. I believe this is 2024 is the last year of Jake Elliott's extension that he signed in 19? So unless that thing has been restructured and we don't know, that might be another contract, Adam, where Howie can save some money if he does an extension now on it and redoes the deal.
Yeah, so you're correct. Good call. He signed a 5-year extension on November 28th of 19, right before the season. And, they usually do 2 to 4 contracts extensions before the season ends. Usually do them somewhere in November in that month. So, yeah, in fact, of course they're going to pay it, but he has a small roster bonus due of $200,000 on March 17th, looking at the notes we were given. We also had some incentives built in. So, yeah, now his cap number is under $6 million. Do they really need to do anything? No. But on your point, sure, they could extend his contract and lower his cap number. And obviously, depending on what they do in free agency, if they make a major move or two, they may need to do that. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, boy, Jake Elliott, before this group of coaches came in, I mean, there were questions about him, and good for Jake and good for the coaches to get it turned around.
Yeah, you got to think if there's a renegotiation that he's going to ask to be the second highest paid kicker in the league behind Tucker. I mean, he deserves it.
He has to. I mean, he's great. I mean, yeah. I know that the Bills kicker did his extension. So Tucker, by the way, Justin Tucker did his extension in August of 22, and he's making $6 million per season. I mean, Elliott is so good. How do you say he doesn't deserve? I understand that Tucker's like maybe the best kicker in NFL history. But, man, Elliott is just so damn good. Automatic Elliott, as they call him.
Yeah.
So it's hard to Tyler Bass, by the way, real quick, we'll move on here. He's making $5.1 million a year. So at very least, he should make what Tyler Bass got.
Sure. By the way, what's a better nickname, Automatic Elliott or Jake the Make? I like Jake
I like Automatic Elliott. I don't know.
Do you? Okay.
It's a little long. I know. It's a little long. I like it.
I like the rhyming of Jake the Make, and he certainly does make almost
great
everything.
Athlete, by the way. Tennis player, golfer, softball player. I mean, what else he might be the best athlete on the team, believe it or not.
The Eagles actually say that quite often. A lot of his teammates will say that Jake Elliott is the best athlete on the team.
Ping pong player. Yeah, he's probably the best ping pong player too.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, that's athletic. They're building pickleball courts where I live now. I can't wait to get involved with that.
I know.
Show my true athleticism.
There you go.
All right, let's get into the pod. We'll pause real quick to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Okay, we are going to start off with the defensive line, taking a look at it there. If I were, to summarize our last podcast and what was really the key theme of the offensive contracts, it's that very top heavy at positions, whether it was wide receiver, offensive line, quarterback, where you've got established starters, but not as deep as we've been used to seeing the Eagles at those positions in the past. We'll see as we go through defense, Adam, because defensive line, as we start, is always a position of good depth for the Eagles, where you're got 3 or 4 guys off the bench who can really play, not just deep as in numbers, but as you always say, deep as in can they play or not.
Yes.
Look at the Eagles defensive line. Let's go through some of the names and see if depth is still a strength or
It is
a little bit different.
Well, here's the thing. So as we go, this is the Inside the Eagles roster series. We don't talk contracts here. This is more about who's left, who are the guys under contract. And the good thing is they're young with with Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. Carter, after a hot start last season, completely dropped off. He's got to have a good offseason. He's got to get his weight down. We'll see what happens here.
Davis,
What's
right?
That?
You mean Jordan Davis? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's what I said. Jordan Davis. Yeah. So, and now that's Jordan Davis. Now, Jalen Carter, like Davis dropped off after a hot start. Jalen Carter, he also dropped off. Now, I know one of the teams we spoke with said that his effort when they would watch the Eagles defensive tape need to be better to close the season. He was more of trying to be a flash player. Needs to be more consistent. Where Jordan Davis is about technique and being in shape. By the way, this has been the problem since he's been drafted, because it looked like he was on his way. Jordan Davis, boy, did he get off to a great start, and then the technique and the weight, you worry about that. Milton Williams, one of the best third tackles in the NFL. This is the last year of his rookie deal. Tui Pelotu has played sparingly. Marlon Tui Pelotu and Moro Joma barely played. So the good thing is they're young, but you don't have that established veteran. If something doesn't work, Fletcher Cox is up. That would worry me. And then the reserve/future deals. Noah Ellis is back for another year, and Thomas Booker, who was a former 6th-rounder of the Texans, is also under contract now.
Yeah, absolutely. So two things jump out at me about this position, right? Inside, yes, it is very good. I mean, even Moro Ojomo, who didn't play a whole lot last year, when he did, I thought he gave some pretty good juice and good motor. And we were told when they drafted him that we had some sources who were familiar with the Texas program that told us that Texas thought that he was their best interior rusher 2 years ago when he came out. So looking forward to see his development. So you got 5 guys there who can play. But the one thing that still jumps out to me, and I know that you mentioned Noah Ellis is back and on a futures deal, is that they don't really have a player who can take the spot of Jordan Davis, right, and play it the way Jordan Davis plays it. I'm not saying they don't have like an amazing athlete who's 360 pounds. Hard to find that, but they don't have a true backup nose unless Noah Ellis somehow makes a team. But they got away with it last year, sort of, or you could say they didn't, because when Jordan Davis struggled, they didn't really have somebody to play that position and plug that run, and they had a lot of issues against the run in the second half of last year. I do wonder, with Vic Fangio aboard, Adam, if they will look to if Howie, the defensive brain trust, will say, look, it's been 2 years. We've seen some flashes of Jordan Davis, but year one, he didn't make it through 7 or 8 starts before we're calling Linval Joseph. And then year number 2, he really tailed off. We need a guy to be able to play that position who can be a 2-gapper, who can be stout against the run. And we don't really have that on the roster.
Yeah, we'll check into this, but I think it's more of a 1-gap for Vic.
Not on the run, though. I'm sure against the run on first down, it's a 2.
Yes, but you're right. But overall, I think they're more of a 1-gap team.
They are, but that's why I think this guy has to play a specified role. He has to be like your backup first, second down guy or goal line guy.
Right. And you were talking about this last spring. The one issue that they had, and you nailed it. They just didn't have anyone who could fill in for Jordan Davis when, whether he was hurt or whatever the case may be. Tui Pelotu, he kind of is that guy, but not enough.
Yeah, he's like a 3 technique guy. He's like a get upfield fast guy, though. He's not
right. He's not a run stopping interior lineman. So that's something we'll look into. That to me, as we get through the defensive tackle position, it would behoove them to sign one veteran run stopping D tackle. Doesn't have to play a lot, because Carter's getting upfield. You know what Milton Williams does, who could also play end. You just mentioned Tui Pelotu, Moro Jomo. He only played in 13% of the snaps on defense. He played actually more on special teams. So you don't really know about him, quite frankly.
Right. And then just on Jalen Carter, when I think of the Vic Fangio defense in Chicago, everybody talks about Khalil Mack, and that's great. Look, Khalil was really amazing player. But that secondary guy was Akeem Hicks. He was so important to that defense on the interior. And I feel like Jalen Carter can be that, or if not better. I mean, I think Akeem Hicks was either an All-Pro or a Pro Bowler that year.
He was a great player.
He was a dominant force.
Yeah.
I know he doesn't stay healthy.
He's
that was
done
his issue. But when he was healthy, he was a
Yep.
dominant force.
Yep.
Same thing with going back to San Francisco, the Justin Smith, right? He was such a good down lineman for them when they had Alden Smith and Justin Smith, and they had somebody, and Bowman and Willis. Like, they could just come at you so many different directions. So it'd be nice if Jalen Carter keeps the head on straight, keeps developing, like you just said, is able to play more snaps and not wear down and really develop into that kind of player under Vic.
I mean, I look at and Jomo, depending on what they're obviously going to add one more person, at least one more guy. But Jomo's got good quickness off the ball. Again, he barely played. His most of his snaps, came in on defense. He only had 68 snaps on defense, 16 on special teams. So he barely played. He was healthy and active over half of the season. But he's a guy that I know some teams had a higher grade on, and the Eagles felt that they got a good value. As a matter of fact, if you remember, did they not keep 7 D tackles on the roster? I know they trade Contavious Street, but did they have 7 to start the season?
They had 7. They had 7 defensive tackles. They had Davis, they had Carter, they had Milton Williams, Tui Pelotu, Ajomo, Contavious Street, and who am I missing? There was a 7th in there.
Cox,
1, 2, 3.
Fletcher
Cox. There you go.
Yep.
That was it.
Yep.
I've never seen a team keep 7 defensive tackles I don't think ever.
Yeah. But honestly, now, did they know they're going to trade Contavious Street? Who knows? I mean, Atlanta got decimated at D tackle, so they were able to get some value for him. So we'll see. We'll move on here, but looking for a veteran defensive tackle, whether they resign Cox or they sign somebody else, they're going to need one.
All right. Defensive end. Now we're talking pass rusher. We'll go D end, and then we'll go outside linebacker to really sandwich edge rusher together. But here's where you start to really wonder about things, right? I mean, you've got at one end Josh Sweat, who is not coming off his greatest year, or at least second half of the year, backed up with Brandon Graham, who's obviously in 35, I think, when next year starts. And on the other end, Reddick, Nolan Smith, and Patrick Johnson. So
Patrick Johnson's only a special teamer, so that's not a lot of depth. We don't know what's going to happen with Son Reddick right now, whether they extend him or trade him. That's up in the air. You mentioned Graham was technically under contract, but he wouldn't come back on what he's being paid. So that's up in the air. And Brandon's indicated he still wants to play, so we'll see what happens. They're going to have to address this position, whether Reddick's or not. They're going to have to address it. They don't have enough depth. They need to get younger there too. So we'll see. They have 2 guys under contract, 30 years or older. So we'll see what they do going forward here. We'll go over some of the names next week in terms of who's available, who would be system fits, and so forth. But yeah, they don't. And typically on a 34 front, depending on how much 5-man front, it's a 5-man front is a 3 down line with 2 overhangs.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see how they do this. Does he want his DNs to be bigger physically? Like what are we looking at here? That's something we're going to look into here.
Right. I think he has generally had taller, like lengthier edge rushers, sort of like the Chip Kelly thing. Khalil Mack has some length to him.
Mm-hmm.
Alden Smith, when he was there in San Francisco, has some length to him. Chubb and the other kid was really lengthy, right? Who's their other rusher who got hurt? Russo, is it?
Oh, no. You mean Miami? Jalen
Phillips.
He was unbelievable under Vic. This past season, it's such a shame he tore his Achilles and that I don't know what they. It was a game at the Jets. I know that it was just a house of horrors for them that game.
Yeah.
But the guys that he had were Draymond Jones, who signed that monster contract with the Seattle, didn't really have a good season. Draymond Jones, you might remember him. DeMarcus Walker, who signed with the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
These are the down linemen guys. These are not the pass rusher guys.
Oh, okay.
These are the guys play with their hands down. Everyone else you were talking about, you're correct. They're all the stand-up pass rushers. They're the stand-up edge rushers. And then Deshaun Williams has been around. You might remember Sylvester Williams, who played nose. He's out of the league now. So it's just a matter. That's what I was saying. Do you want length on the guys who are going to play with their hand down?
Mm-hmm.
Typically, you do on a 34 front, but that's something we'll learn over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Jalen Phillips, 6'5", coming off the edges with long arms. So yeah, no doubt about that. I've got some length there. So when you look at this overall, Adam, how do you feel about this D end outside linebacker grouping that they have here? Somebody asked me the other day, I think Football on F4, we were talking with Mike Gill or Josh Hennig on the radio and said, would you be surprised if the Eagles took an edge rusher in the first round? And I said, of course not. You can never be surprised if the Eagles. Yeah, they're going to need they treat the draft for the future. And if you look, say who's going to definitely be on this team from the edges in 1 or in 2 years down the road, it's hard to say. It really is. Other than Nolan Smith.
Right. If they keep 22, sure. You're looking at a corner or an edge rusher are the most two important positions right now. I say safety. They don't value safety like other teams do, like maybe the Ravens do. But the bottom line is, they're going to need more down linemen. They're going to need more stand-up pass rushers. So this is a 34 front. It's another thing I not thought about. How much longer will Vic Fangio coach? Is he going to coach 5 more years when he's 70? Is he going to coach 2 more years?
Great question.
Yeah, because as you were talking, I thought about something because you were right. You always look towards the future. The best clubs look 3 or 4 years down the line, not just the first year. That's not the way you win. And that's something. Now here's the thing, for many years they were 43 front. And then when Chip came in with Billy Davis, it went to a 34, which was like, wow, they're actually going to run a 34 here. Wow, this is breaking news. They haven't done that in I don't know how long. But so that's something that Vic and Howie will have to take a look at is what they're going to be running for the future. And also one more thing before we move on here, is there any coach on their staff now? We'll learn more about this in the coming months and weeks. Is there anyone who could potentially replace Vic when he retires on the staff?
Great question. I mean, we know Clint Hurt was a defensive coordinator last year, so maybe with a little more seasoning, a couple of years here under Vic, he might be the guy that be next in line. We know, I know it's early, but you're talking about 4 or 5 years from now. Let's see how Joe Casper does with the safeties, because he's a guy we know the Eagles really liked. And Vic, he was with the Eagles, as we say all the time. Vic was consulting the Eagles 2 years ago and then thought, hey, I like this kid, and took him to Miami with them. So clearly both Vic and the Eagles saw something in Joe Casper that they liked.
Yeah, fair point. Look at, this guy Casper's a young guy. I mean, look at Nick Rollis. I mean, at 30 years old.
Great point.
One of the youngest defensive coordinators in NFL history. I mean, it's just, that's something to always look at. I mean, if you think someone's brilliant, you take care of that. And then we've got inside linebacker where they're really thin. Holy smokes.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. First, whether your resolution is to save money, eat better, or stress less, HelloFresh is here to help you do all three. Say hello to your most delicious year yet with fresh ingredients and chef-crafted recipes at a price you're going to love, delivered right to your door. So you've resolved to actually sit down and eat dinner around the table, but what do you do about those nights when your schedule is so jam-packed? That's when you turn to HelloFresh's lineup of quick and easy meals. That includes their 15-minute recipes designed to help minimize mealtime stress. That's our kind of meal right there. Every time we eat something from HelloFresh, whether it's quick and easy or one of their standard types, we're blown away by the freshness, taste, and the overall quality. And there's so many different options, whether you like chicken, whether you like steak, whether you like seafood, vegetarian, anything you want, you can get from HelloFresh. And now here's their latest great deal. It includes breakfast. Go to HelloFresh.com/EaglesFree and use the code EaglesFree, that's one word, to get free breakfast for life, one breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/EaglesFree with the code EaglesFree, all one word there, EaglesFree. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, as you were moving on to inside linebacker, which is, we could do 3 hours on inside linebacker every single year for the Philadelphia Eagles. As we do roster review and we say, I don't know about this, we'll see.
Exactly. So look, under contract are only 2 guys. Nakobe Dean, coming off of his Lisfranc injury, as our injured Checo said, talking to Dean, he should be good. In fact, he'll be definitely good to go, barring a setback by the start of OTAs. And then a guy who barely played on defense, but when he started in week number 16 at home against the visiting Giants, he really played well. That's Ben Van Sumeren. who, there were issues because he hasn't played defense for a very long in his football playing career, and there were issues with his ability to process. But man, he was really, really good. And yeah, and by the way, he only signed a 2-year contract, so he signed through 24.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something to take a look at in terms of what the Eagles do here with him. It certainly would be a stretch to say he could compete for a starting job, but the tape was so good. They got to be intrigued by it. They have to be intrigued by it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he can play himself into a situational role at linebacker if he does something good enough. I agree with you. The traits aren't the issue. It was, as we were told, the instincts, the knowledge of the position, and he got better as that. He talked about that. Andrew DeCecco wrote a really good story about Ben Van Sumeren sometime in either November or December, and he admitted that he knew he needed to work on just having a better feel for the position and not just being reliant all the time on your athleticism, which it's easy to do when you're as athletic as he is. I mean, his athletic testing is off the charts. So it's good that he knew what he had to focus on, and it's good that his coaching was there and he started to make some development by the end of the year. Obviously, at this position, Adam, you always got a chance to compete because they don't bring in, you're not going to be battling 2 all-pro guys at that spot. Someone asked me on Twitter if we could see similarities between Van Sumeren and a TJ Edwards, an undrafted guy. And maybe I would just say, I think it's almost a reverse situation where TJ had really good linebacker instincts coming out of Wisconsin, which is a linebacker factory. What TJ had to work on was, losing a few pounds, getting his coverage, working. You can't make yourself faster, but if you're smart and you lose a little pounds and you work on lateral movement and certain athletic movements, you can marry that and become a better player, which he did. So maybe Van Sumeren, who already has the athleticism, can work on his deficiencies, which is really understanding everything from zone drops to where he's supposed to be, tackling, form, all that, and make himself into a pretty good linebacker.
It's interesting because if you recall, they cut him. He passed through waivers unclaimed. He was activated a bunch, obviously, off the practice squad, then finished the season on the roster. So this is a guy that it's got a lot of ability. I know he's relatively new to defense, but he's a really big-time athlete. The problem was the college tape. He overran so many plays because he's got to learn how to play it correctly, and the processing thing was a big deal. But that Giants tape was so good that it's intriguing, and they're really light there. So the question is not whether he can make the team, can he actually contribute on defense? Now that is something we're going to really look forward to looking at starting in OTAs.
Absolutely. By the way, I can't remember because it's been such a whirlwind offseason. Do the Eagles have a linebackers coach yet, or is that still?
I don't remember.
Defensive line they got, safety they got.
I think they did, but I don't remember the guy's name.
Yeah. Okay. Well, either way, that's this coach's job will be to take Ben Van Sumeren and continue the development there. Yep. You mentioned Brandon Smith, right? He's on a futures deal. Kind of another guy with like a lot of athleticism. He was very athletic, went to Penn State, but there were times where it looked like he didn't exactly know where to be. And that was just at Penn State. So I know he was a 4th-round pick of the Panthers. So, right? Traits pick?
Correct. Totally pick? Traits. Yeah. Over 6'3", over 240.
That's
he was
good size, man.
Yep. Long. He's overdrafted. Hey, he's looking for a chance here. They're so light at that position. So here are the guys on a contract at ILB. Dean, who's coming off a major injury. Van Sumeren, who's new to the position, was not drafted last year. Brand Smith, who was I hate to call him a draft bust, but he kind of was, 4th rounder. Didn't really contribute, was also an IR before. So that's it. So, man, is there a lot of room here for someone to surprise us?
Yes, definitely. We did talk about the outside linebackers, Reddick, Smith, and Johnson. There are a couple guys also. We mentioned Julian Okwara, who they signed off the street. He got more. Is it still considered a futures deal? Because he got a 2-point-something million deal. So is that different?
It's reserve future. Yeah. What it is because he's a vested veteran. He gets, I don't know what the guarantee isn't very big. It's just that if he makes the team, he's going to make over $2 million. So it's a guy that has got upside. We talked about him. The other edge rusher, stand up outside linebackers. This is the one I love, Terrell Lewis. who, from Alabama, it's a program that's near and dear to the Eagles' heart. We know
all of a sudden, yes,
Yeah.
over the last few years.
I know. After ignoring it for 2 decades. Since Sharon Stacy, for those of you old timers.
Nice.
This guy's got ability. I'm really interested to see. He's over 6'5", over 260. He looked like he
That's
was
crazy.
going, looked like he was doing something, and then he just never got there. But he was a 3rd rounder. Why you love mentioning it? You're 100% right. Traits, man.
Yeah.
He's a big dude. Let's go. Let's see what he's got.
I mean, this is almost Jeremiah Trotter-esque with being 6'5", 260. Like, it's shocking to see that. I get it. He's an outside linebacker, not an inside linebacker. But it'll be pretty interesting to see if they can get anything out of him. Drafted by the Rams. He did play 30 games and started 7 for the Rams. I don't know. It's weird. You're right. He doesn't look like a total bust or anything. He's got 6 sacks. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I kind of like looking forward to those. We make a big deal out of them every spring and summer, and then sometimes it doesn't pan out. But like last year, it was the wide receivers. It was Tyree Cleveland. It was somebody else that they signed too. They had signed another wide receiver who had some NFL experience that we were excited about seeing, and then it just didn't pan out. But I don't know. This is a different position.
Yeah, I mean, Okwara. Yeah, Okwara and particularly Lewis, because Trot was 6'1" plus but wide. Lewis is 6'5" and just long and strong. And I get it. He didn't make it. And Okwara's got traits. And Teron Jackson's back again on a future deal. It's a guy that was drafted in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound right?
I believe you're correct about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, again, not a lot of depth. In fact, right now, they're outside linebacker / edge rushers or Reddick under contract. Last year was deal. Everybody knows what's going on there. Smith, his 2nd year, and Patrick Johnson really only plays special teams. Pretty good player there. And the other guys are the future deal. So, yeah, they're really late at that deal. And as you said, at 22, if they keep it, that absolutely is in the conversation.
Yeah. And kudos, by the way, to Patrick Johnson, because the Eagles have been drafting, using day 3 picks on edge rushers for a little bit. They brought in Kyron Johnson a couple of years ago, and then somebody else. So he keeps fending everybody off. That's when you can do that because you're a good special teamer. It's a big feather in your cap. So kudos to. He actually was playing, if you remember, Adam, when Patricia was trying to crowbar some of his Belichickian concepts into the defense. He was putting Patrick Johnson out there. I want to say 5 to 8 times a game in the last 2 or 3 games, which is 5 to 8 times more than he played in the first
100%.
So
yes,
he was trying.
As a matter of fact, how little did he play on defense? He only had 38 snaps on defense the entire season.
Oh my God.
I
bet you 30 of them came in the last 3 or 4
Exactly,
weeks.
on your point, right. He had 213 the season before. And this past season, he played a ton of special team snaps, just like he did the year before. He's basically a special teams player, 299. So he really doesn't factor in at all in defense unless somebody gets hurt. But hey, he's a guy that, if your 7th rounder has not been cut and at least he contributes, he has.
Yeah.
He's a core special teams player. It counts.
He's your Brian Brayman of this regime, right?
Who got paid a lot of money, by the way.
He did get paid a lot of money. Absolutely. All right, moving on to cornerback. Let's go through the names here, Adam, and you just tell me what you think in general after you say all the names.
All right, so Slay and Bradbury, everybody knows Slay will be here this season. Bradbury, do they eat the just under 11 million? They got to get through that. There's no reason to restructure unless you're going to keep him, because you owe him nearly 11 million, whether he's on the roster or not. If you cut him, you owe him it. If he's on it, you owe him it. It's just how they need to get through it. And then the young kids who are going to be backups, they don't project as starters. Ringo showed something. Ricks definitely showed something. Nice story. And Josh Jobe, really pretty good. I mean, in terms of guys contributing, but none of them project as starters right now. They don't have the future replacement for Slay and Bradbury on the roster as we speak now. Look, anything could happen. Rick certainly did a great job handling everything that was thrown at him. Boy, did he do a good job on what he was asked to do. But it's one thing to do something in a reserve role or get pressed into service over a series of weeks, but to be a full-time starter, and the Eagles typically do not rotate their corners unless they're struggling like Bradbury was, or unless they're coming off an injury. So they play almost 100% of the snaps. By the way, most teams do that. So they still have to figure out the future at the quarterback position, which they don't know what that's going to be. Oh, by the way, McPherson coming off the torn Achilles, who was going to compete for a nickel role, but oh well, we'll see. He's under contract. Zach McPherson is.
One of my homework assignments over the next few weeks, Adam, is to figure out what happened to Job, who had a good training camp, had to play early because Maddox got hurt. McPherson was already hurt. They tried to move James Bradbury to the slot. When they did that, like full-time slot earlier in the year, that opened up the door for Job to come in and play the outside coming off his nice camp. Okay. He had some good moments. He had some not great moments, but either way, he got experience, young kid. Then Bradbury went back outside. And then to fill the slot, they went with Roby. Then Roby got hurt. Then it became Ricks. Then it was like a amalgam of different people. And we never really got to see when, by the end of the year, when Patricia took over and they just wanted to bench Bradbury or play him only against tight ends, they were playing Ringo. Keely Ringo got his first spot. So I would like to know, did Ringo practice so much better than Job, who had a really nice camp and got the first crack? Like, how did that happen? Is it just because Ringo was a 4th round pick? You know, sometimes teams, sometimes teams want to get that pick onto the field. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think that the latter of what you said is part of it, because Ringo was the drafted player of those 3. But Ricks, man, God, that is hard to do. Give him major props for taking some of that nickel job.
Definitely.
Which is really not what anyone saw, because the longer guys don't typically play inside, or if they do, they don't play very well. So kudos to him. We'll see what happens. And then the other guys on reserve/future deals are Mario Goodrich and Mekhi Garner, who did also play safety. So, yeah, the cool thing is, like, Ricks, really good signing. Job, nice signing. He contributed. Goodrich, okay. I mean, he's a guy who might want to play or nickel as well someday, we were told. And Garner, look, at least these guys contributed. So that's a good thing. It's not like they're with another team now. These guys, good scouting by the Eagles, they've shown something. Now we'll see if they could contribute more going forward.
Yeah, I want to highlight a story Andrew DeCecco wrote about some second-year guys next year that he thinks can, compete to try to get on the field and serve a role if they're forced onto it. And one of the guys on InsideTheBirds.com, the title of the story was Beneath the Surface. One of the guys he likes is Mekhi Garner, because he comes from LSU. He was able last year when he got on the field to play multiple spots. He can play corner, he can play safety, he can play nickel. He seems like the type of guy Vic Fangio would like for that reason, because of his ability to play multiple spots. Now, obviously, the Eagles are going to make some moves in the secondary, and you never know. I don't think they want to have to play Mekhi Garner, but it puts Mekhi into a position where if he competes and fights and looks really good, then maybe he can carve out a spot. We'll see. Or if somebody gets hurt, you feel comfortable with him stepping in. He's another guy with good traits, good athletic traits.
Yeah, the term is the more you can do. That's what coaches love. They always tell these undrafted guys, the more you could do in terms of what we ask you, the better chance you have to make the team and then contribute. So we saw it again. Ricks playing the multiple roles. That was the big one. That's a great story. We'll see what kind of offseason he could have. Then the nickels, obviously Maddox, he obviously cannot come back with the salary he's making, but can they find a bridge deal where they lower his cap number, lower the cash, give him some upside? That remains to be seen. Tywan Mullen, who's back. These are the reserve guy. He is the reserve guy in terms of nickel. He was with their practice squad and then cut, and then he was also with the Chargers last season. He's a smaller guy than we mentioned, Isaiah Rodgers. The nickel position right now is like kind of wide open. We don't know what's going to happen.
It is. I also wonder about Isaiah Rodgers, Adam. I know his size. He's like 5'9", correct? He's a short guy.
Yeah, he's 175.
Yeah, didn't he wind up playing more outside for the Colts than nickel?
Both, yes, exactly. So what happened was, I looked into this. Kenny Moore, his last year, Kenny Moore started on the outside. He's better inside. When they went into nickel, Moore moved inside, and Rodgers was on the outside. He also returned kicks for them and maybe a couple punts. He is 40 times. So what happened? I did someone in scouting helped me. He said, look, he didn't have a combine. He had a pro day, a virtual pro day. It was the COVID year. So he ran incredibly well in the 4.3s. He's just a smaller frame guy. He's very competitive though. Rodgers is 5'10", 175. The key here is get him once he gets into OTAs. They're going to know very quickly where he's at physically, and also conditioning. It's not going to take them a month. It'll take them a week to see where he's at. So it'll be past the rookie camp when the vets come in the second week. They'll know very quickly where he's at, and then obviously if it goes well, bring him to training camp, see what kind of role he could have, and it'd be good because, again, depending on what happens with Maddox, and even if Max comes back, about his injury history, Isaiah Rodgers is a young guy, 26. Though the Colts clearly could have kept him, they decided not to. So you could question that, but the kid's got a lot of ability, and he just turned 26 and hasn't played football in a while. But they're going to get a really quick idea where he's at once we get through that rookie camp.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see, like you said, what they do with Maddox and how soon they make that decision. Last year of his deal, no guaranteed money left. Great kid, good player when healthy.
Yeah.
Frequently injured. And I think when he did not play well when he came back from his injury this past year, what did he come back for, like the last game in the playoff game before I think it was a season
last year
game.
We talking about this past season?
No, yeah, I'm just talking about like a month ago when
yeah. And don't forget the Super Bowl. He had that really bad toe, probably should not have played.
Yeah.
You wanted to play, give him credit for toughing it out, and then he had the surgery. So man, as long as you and I have done this show, I can't remember a more injured player.
No, he's like snake bit. It's bad.
Yeah.
Anyway. Thought Sam Allo was headed in that direction, and then he wound up staying healthy the last two years of his deal after some really difficult first 2 years of his deal. So
correct.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Maddox has been snake bit. All right, we'll finish it off with safeties in a second. Injuries suck. You know what else sucks? Finding good tickets online. Unless you have the Game Time app, it's the fast, easy way to buy tickets for sporting events, concerts, and theater shows near you. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And right now on the Game Time app, you're just 2 taps away from tickets to seeing any of the local pro or college teams. You can see a comedy show. You can see a concert. Heck, maybe you're headed to Florida, Clearwater pretty soon for some Philly spring training, and you want to jump in and get some tickets there. You could do that too. So the best part is Game Time offers event cancellation protection and job loss protection. It's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Their all-in prices show you the total up front, and you get to see the view from your seat. You know exactly what to expect at checkout. Game Time is obsessed with helping you save money. They've got zone deals that let you pick the section while Game Time picks the seats, so you get the best savings. Or there's the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, use the redeem code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And let's pause real quick to hear a word from our other great friends and sponsors at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you stop in at Sky Motor Cars in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam just sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, let's finish this off with the safeties discussion here. And it's a lot of the same, Adam. You've got Kevin Byard, who they traded for. We'll see, because like we said with Brandon Graham, you can't bring him back at the number he's at. And he's going to pay him that number either.
Yeah, I mean, he's making just under $14 million total cash. Forget it. It's about cash, not cap. Always remember that, folks. The media overrates it. If you talk to any cap manager, they'll tell you, he goes, cap's something we have to work through. It's all about cash. Cash is king. It's what ownership and the controller of the team, the president, will tell you. They give you a cash budget, and he's owed $13.8 million in base salary and a $4 million roster bonus. Byard's due. We're told it's on March 17th. So that, to me, as I said the last show, when we talked about his contract overall, he dealt with 3 different defenses: the Tennessee one, the first Eagle scheme, and then the foolish one that Patricia ran, which nobody bought into. No one could figure it out. So, they're so dire at safety. It's not like he's 35 he turns 31 in August. So look, if they could find something that's reasonable, why wouldn't you bring him back? But 14, as you said, on just under 14 million is certainly not reasonable.
Yeah, the only reason I think maybe you don't is if Vic is looking for familiarity, and you saw Eddie Jackson got cut from the
Sure.
Bears, and he's
Yep.
not the listen. You could say Eddie Jackson's not the player he used to be. Well, neither is
Correct.
Kevin Byard. So if and
Maybe.
there'll probably be some other guys, right, that get cut that may have experience. So I imagine that Vic and Howie and the Nick, the Brain Trust, they'll be able to sort it out and just figure out which is the best for their situation.
And by the way, Eddie Jackson was incredible with Vic.
Yeah.
After Vic left it. Now I understand that was sort of like the prime of his career, but man, after Vic left, I mean, he was steadily downhill, and he hadn't been a factor in years. At 32, I have no idea if he has anything left.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. Yeah, Blankenship, by the way, he was eligible after year one to sign extension. Any undrafted player could sign extension at any time. So this is the last year of his 3-year deal. And then you got City Brown, who's coming off a major injury. No exact timetable for him to be back in September. That's the hope, he's back in September, but even if he is, not going to look like he did before the injury. It's this coming season is kind of like, okay, he'll be back, but to think he's going to be anywhere close to where he was when he started to really come on, that's a stretch. And then Tristan McCullum was their one reserve future deal, who, when he played, he was on special teams, played a little bit on defense, and he's got an athletic body like his brother Zion, and we'll see where they go. But again, it's just, man, talk about, as we went inside this roster in the show, way more question marks on defense. Way more.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just in this safety picture alone, they have one starting safety who you would say is an average one compared to the league, and Kevin Byard. They have 2 number 3 safeties, and Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown. But Brown, you might even consider him a number 4 because he's coming back from the injury. I mean, maybe by the end of the year, he looks more like a number 2, but right, you can't start the season with that in mind. So that's it.
Blankenship has been a starter. So again, as we said from day one, he's probably best off as a 3. And with Byard, again, before we get out of here, I'm not so sure he's regressed. Again, he had to play in 3 different defenses. The coaching was so poor last season on defense. Some of the stuff we know, like Jordan Davis is unacceptable. We've got to lose weight, better technique. The tape showed you can't argue because it's the fact. Everyone who was on our show last season said it. Other teams told us he wasn't good enough shape. Technique was terrible. That's got to be cleaned up with the new D-line coach. Clint Hurt, knowing the way Clint Hurt coaches from talking to the Seahawks, I guarantee you that whatever Jordan Davis has in his body, Clint Hurt will get out of it. But man, the safety position, I don't know what to expect. Not a lot of answers.
I'm with you. Like, you're right. Byard was a victim of circumstance, and he can probably play better. So I agree with you. He's not like James Bradbury, where he just fell off the face of the earth, but he's clearly not the all pro from 5 or 6 years ago when he had 8 interceptions or 6 interceptions. He's not as quick and dynamic as he used to be.
But you make a great point. These coaches love the D coordinators love to bring in their own players. You see it in so many different veteran D coordinators over the years. So we'll see what they do. Obviously, the way the Eagles think, they'll try to help Vic. Howie's really good at that. He's not going to do everything, but when a coach wants a player, he'll certainly look at it, and we've seen the history of doing this.
Oh yeah, I would definitely have my eyes on the Dolphins and the Broncos. Vic's last 2 spots, and seeing what's going on with those teams and their personnel. Sure. All right, I'd also have my eye on InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew DeCecco starting a series this week, going through each player at each position, the stay or go series, what he thinks will happen to players under contract. Are they staying? Are they going? So it's going to be a really good series from Andrew DeCecco, as everything he does is very good. So make sure you're following that on InsideTheBirds.com. Our next podcast will be Wednesday morning, as it always is. So we look forward to seeing everybody then. This will put a wrap on the 2-part roster review series. I enjoyed this one, Adam. This was fun. We went through a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, we learned that their holes are even worse than I thought.
Yeah, a lot of questions.
When we go inside this stuff, because we both bring up stuff that maybe someone told us months ago, and we go, oh yeah, that's right. Be careful of saying this guy can't play or whatever. It's like the Byard stuff I heard from somebody with another team who's already because this guy works in pro personnel. He goes, Byard didn't look too bad. He goes, it's just what were they trying to do on defense? The guy couldn't figure it out. It was just a mess.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
All right. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.